Hey y'all, my name is Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us today. We are so excited to have 𝗵𝗵𝗀 on. Jim is the president of TOC, and he is also a podcast host. He hosts the Manufacturing Culture podcast, and he's been making some serious waves here in the industry lately. Just saw him at IME West, and he's been out and about, and we're super excited to have his energy among us and our collective and spreading the good word. But Jim, we'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself. You want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Ann. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's always really neat to be on this side of the questions. I've gotten so used to being on your side of the questions that being interviewed is actually kind of a nice refreshing break. So we will reciprocate this and I'll interview you at some other point. 𝗵𝗵𝗀, I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I've worked in everything from distribution to nonprofit to working for an OEM. I actually got into the trades by route of the construction industry. I built houses in northern Colorado, fell off 𝗠𝗵𝗶𝘀 roofs and started selling construction supplies, which is where I walked into my first machine shop in Long Beach, California. And it was infectious. It was just something that got the smells, the sights, the sounds. I tell that story a lot. It's infectious. It's now in my blood, this love of manufacturing. Over the course of the last 3 years since I started TCO, it's been a journey to learn other parts of manufacturing, which has been really the coolest part, right? Talk about going out to IME, being there, learning the medical device, the automation side of manufacturing has been really neat because my career has historically been in the metal industry, right? Machine shops, working with job shots and machine shops and fab shops. So it's just been a fun journey. TCO Strategies is in its second kind of new phase of its lifetime at this point. So it's now less of a consulting company and more of a solutions company where I just like to tour factories, shops, whatever, and help companies with some of the solutions, some of the partners that I have make their operations more efficient and culturally healthier for people to want to work in. So that's a little bit about me. Anybody who's interested in reaching out, I'm an open book. Reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, Jim's awesome. I will validate that. For everyone listening today, Jim is a really cool
Thank you.
dude. He's good people. So super excited about that. That's a good story. I love that. Metal fabrication, huh?
Yeah, I love it, man. So when I was building houses, I was a chainsaw scribe. And so I would stand up on the second or third story of a building and literally use a chainsaw to make two pieces, massive pieces of wood fit together. And uh, so getting into metal was just natural for me because they take large hunks of metal and they make them smaller, right? Not that I was a machinist. I cannot turn anything or mill anything. I've got a little hobby plastic lathe in my garage, and my
Oh,
son and
fun.
we use it with soap because he's really interested in that kind of stuff. So we lathe and make little bowling pins and baseball bats out of soap, but we don't do anything with metal. I've never been a machine. I can't program anything. The technical side of manufacturing is not who I am. I am definitely the people side. I love the people in this industry.
I love the people in this industry too. I love
They're
that.
amazing.
They are. That's awesome. I love that about your kiddo too. So you all have like a whole little hobby thing with soap going on. We love that.
3D printer pins, little lathes. He's now learning CAD and CAM at school. So he's learning how to program and do those kinds of things. He found some way into some website last night. My wife was sitting with him and he goes, "Hey mom, I'm a hacker." And he's just like click clacking away on a keyboard. And right then I walk in and he is in some Linux code building platform and we don't know how he got there.
Oh,
But
wow.
at 9 years old, he figured
Yeah.
it out. And yeah, so we've got him, we've got our daughter who is the she bucks the curve. A lot of young girls, she's 13, start losing confidence in math and science. Something about our daughter, she has yet to lose confidence really in any aspect of her life. And so she's plowing through with math and science. So we're very thankful to have two kids that are really into math, science, STEM type stuff. And it makes my job a lot easier to talk with other kids when I've got two kids at home who are interested in this kind of stuff.
I love that. That's amazing. Good
Yeah.
job.
It's
You're
fun.
crushing your parenting.
Hey, it's the coolest job I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love mine too. Yeah.
It's you and I were texting back and forth last week. It's simultaneously, it's like business ownership, simultaneously the scariest and funnest job I've ever had in my life is being a parent. And I could say the same thing about owning a company. It's the most exhilarating and most fun, but yet the most terrifying all at the same time.
Oh my god, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Mine is like is comparable to a pterodactyl
Ooh,
or a
okay.
raptor. He's a very high energy. He's very smart, but he is very high energy, very like, "Let's go," you know?
I don't know if I've ever heard a mother equate their child to a pterodactyl, and
I
so
love
I
it.
can that that might be the best thing. I want to see him dressed up as a pterodactyl for Halloween. Can you make that happen this year?
I can try to make that happen. I think
Okay.
he's more into I mean, he's so funny too. He's like more into like, I want to be something scary. This last year, he was like this astronaut monkey skeleton thing from
Okay.
Doctor Strange. Is it Doctor Strange or Doctor Who? I mean, I don't even know where this
Well, those
he's
are
like
both things. Both things. Doctor
they're
Strange
both
and
things.
Doctor Who are both things, but they live in vastly different universes,
They
and I
do.
don't know much about either one, so I
I don't
can't
know
help you.
much about either one either, but then he's all like he's already I mean, he just gets into this stuff on his own. He's 7 and he's already like a big Star Wars junkie. And
Love it.
I mean, I like Star Wars. I've seen all the Star Wars movies. Am I like a super fan of Star Wars? I can't keep up with him. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll own it. I love it. I think it's great. I'm all about like supporting that in all of our friends and the kids and all that, but I can't he comes at me with all kinds of things and I'm like,
The deep
"Okay."
cuts of Star Wars that he expects you to be able to like analyze with him.
Yes. And I'm embarrassed because I feel like I should have some ownership for that. I feel like I should know those things, but yeah, no, he
You're
stays
doing a great job. The fact that you know what he's talking about 9 times out of 10 is just means you're a good mom.
Thank you. I try to keep up. So we gotta officially start this conversation though,
Let's
right?
start. Let's
We
kick it off.
gotta kick this conversation off. You know, my intro question is always gonna be the same,
Yeah.
but I've got to know what your favorite karaoke song is or your favorite song. I love music.
Okay. So, fun fact about me, I used to run a karaoke night. And yeah, and I've actually done it a couple of times here in Phoenix in the last couple of years since I started my company, just looking to make extra money on the side, right? And I love karaoke, love singing karaoke. My wife took me out on my 30th birthday a decade and a half ago to karaoke as one of our first pre-marriage birthday celebrations together. My go-to song is Just a Gigolo by David Lee Roth. I've got the raspy voice that really lends itself to that era of David Lee Roth. So I can do a lot of Van Halen. I can do, like I said, David Lee Roth. I've done Ice Ice Baby
Nice.
before. And actually, if there are people who are listening who was at West Tech in 2019, they would have seen me fail miserably at Ice Ice Baby. I may have taken a shot right before I got up there, and I fumbled my way through, and I had to get the audience to help me finish it out. So, yeah, just a gigolo, to answer your question, is my go-to. If I show up at a karaoke bar, that's the first one I go to.
I could not hang. I could not hang with that. I love that so much though. Like I love many things here. I love that you go and do karaoke nights. Like that's exciting. Please call me.
Oh yeah, I'll
Too.
sing
Like
anything.
even if you know it's gonna tank. I mean, where's karaoke, y'all? Like, I mean, that's part of the experience, right?
Absolutely. It's just putting
Um,
yourself out there in a way that isn't the most comfortable, right? Because you may be there with a bunch of friends, but they're only a fraction of the audience, right? So you're putting yourself out there in front of people that don't know you and have no idea who you are, and they are judging every second of your movement and your voice, right? And so it takes a lot of comfortability with oneself to be able to get up there and do that. You don't have to be great. You just have to be comfortable in your own skin.
yeah, absolutely. And who doesn't? I mean, it's karaoke if we're taking this seriously. I mean, right?
Yeah. And so,
It's
and I
fun. It's
think,
supposed to be fun.
okay, so I have two questions for you. I said I wasn't going to ask you any questions. I lied. What's your song? What's your song?
Oh gosh, it used to be All I Really Want by 𝗠liche 𝗵𝗶𝘀. I have expanded my horizons. Although I have done What I Got by 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀. I feel like that's a fun
Oh,
group
I
one.
like that. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good group one too. You get a
Yeah.
bunch of people on
Oh,
stage. It's fun.
absolutely. Yeah.
I've done 𝗬𝗏𝗡's Truth Hurts. And
Oh my God.
I feel like
I
I
have
did
to
pretty
see
well that
that.
one.
I
Yeah.
have to see that one happen live. Yes. All right. So,
Um,
question number two
okay.
is, can we make sure that our schedules align for at least one more event in 2024? And you and I, the Ann Wyatt Agency and TCO Strategies, and any of our other friends in the industry that want to help put this together, we put together a manufacturing karaoke night at a local karaoke bar in whatever city that we're going to, whether it's IMTS or Automate or any of these other shows that are coming up. Can you and I work on spearheading a manufacturing karaoke night?
Are you asking me to partner with you on a karaoke night?
I am. I am.
I
In
would
front of
love
your audience.
to.
Yes.
I would love to. That's so sweet. That
Let's
is.
make it
I
happen.
appreciate that. That
Let's make
is.
it happen. And I think we've got enough people in our corner that like to work with you. They like to work with me and want to do something unique and different. And let's make it happen.
I would love that. Yes,
Awesome.
I'm down. Yeah,
All right.
so if you're listening and you're hearing this right now, we are making it official.
Yes.
We are partnering and we are doing a karaoke event sometime here in the near future. So we'll have to get together and figure out which events
And
we're going to, but I'm sure we'll be at a lot of the same ones.
if you're listening, put in the comments on whatever platform you're listening on. Put in the comments what show we should do this at, what event, what industry event we should do this at, and we will work together to make that happen. Fair enough?
Yes.
All right.
I love that.
I love it.
Yes.
Now I'm excited.
Yeah.
I've got something else to focus on.
Yeah, because we need your input. We need you to come and do karaoke with us, and, we're
Absolutely.
here to make your karaoke dreams come true.
Oh, let's make somebody famous, Ann. Let's
Do
go
it.
full like America's Got Talent type style or something like that. Let's do it. All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. We could have a competition. Is this are we just spitballing this in real
We
life
are
right
we
now?
are
And this is like
spitballing
it's
this in real
recording,
life
like, this is
on your
happening.
podcast. This
Oh,
is
that's
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
We'll figure out the deets, but
All right.
yes, let's do it.
I'm excited.
Cool.
This will be fun. All right. Awesome. All right. So
It's gonna be a great
are
time.
we going to talk about workforce or do you want to keep talking about karaoke? Because I'm good either way.
love this about us. We have awesome energy. Well, yeah, let's get into the workforce piece of it. And like more specifically, a big part of the workforce that I think we talk about some, but not a whole lot on this show, really, because we talk a little bit more about technology, I think, on this show than we
Right.
do culture. But I do want to have this conversation about culture and leadership strategies,
Yeah.
because that's kind of something that is your specialty. You work with companies that are interested in improving their company culture
Yeah.
and working with their people, which is the backbone of our industry, right?
Absolutely. And let me preface this by saying I don't judge anybody's culture, right? My job, TCO Strategies, does not exist to go into a facility and tell somebody you've got a bad culture. Because what I've
Mm-hmm.
learned about culture is that it's very individualistic, right? It's not one size fits all for any industry, for any organization within an industry. So my job is to not come in and tell manufacturer X, you've got a really bad culture. My job is to come in and say, I hear you've got high turnover. Do you know why that's happening? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, they don't know why. And so we then dive into that, and really culture, in my eyes, in my experience, my world of work, culture, it can be boiled down to as simply as the alignment of values between the organization and its employees. Once you have that alignment between an organization and what the individuals who work for that organization believe, then you've got the foundation to build off of. That's where your leaders then walking the talk and living those values of the organization becomes so important. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I think, yeah, I try not to judge a company's I mean, it's kind of a matter of this is where we are currently present day.
Right.
This is where your goals are
Right.
at the end of the day, and this is how we get there. And this does not happen overnight. This
Right.
is an entire mind shift change. And this is literally going through person by person, talking to everybody and,
Absolutely.
getting the consensus on where the pain points are.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely. And so typically I start with, do you have a mission, vision, and values? And you would be shocked in at how few companies, regardless of industry, but we're talking about manufacturing. So let's keep it manufacturing specific. How few companies in our industry have all three of those like basic pillars of business. They may have a mission statement, they may have a vision statement, they may have 5 or 6 words that they've thrown on a wall and they call them
Mm,
values, right? But
purpose. Yeah.
are they really living the that mission, vision, and values, right? So that's typically where I start after I have the conversation with leadership of, why do you think you're losing people? Okay, well, let's pivot here. Let's create these mission, vision, and values. Now, are your leaders living those, right? And that's really the start to get to that desired state for manufacturers is you've got to identify who you are now, identify who you want to be, and create that roadmap, like you said, to get there.
Yeah. So how do you come up with metrics for that? Are there metrics that you use? Are there different things that you notice in an organization? Where do you kind of get your baseline from to go
Yeah,
from there?
and
Or anything you can share that would be helpful to listeners out there that are, trying to make a decision on that currently.
yeah, so that's the hardest part about culture, right?
Yeah.
Is it's hard for people to identify, how do we measure the financial implications of our culture, right? How do we measure having a healthy culture financially, right? How do we draw those correlations? So, the answer is, there is no answer that can be again shown across all industries, across all companies, because it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to build a culture of innovation, you can't necessarily measure based on the same thing as you would if you're building a culture of inclusivity, right? If you're
Mm.
building a culture of winning is a lot different than a culture of innovation, right? So it all depends on what you want your desired culture to be. There are metrics to measure everything, right? If you want a culture of winning, right? For example, if you want to say, hey, our culture is we win everything. We go out, we win jobs, we make sure our jobs are done on time, we win hearts and minds of people, we win, right? If that's your measure of success, then finding that metric that tracks to that is very important. And that could be anything from how many deals have you won? What's your on-time delivery rates? On the other hand, if your desired culture is innovation, then what's your scrap rate? What's your continuous improvement cycle like, right? There are different things to measure based on different desired cultures. So uh, people just need to ask questions, right? And
What is it to you? You know,
exactly.
what is your value? I love that. That is awesome advice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many people and so many, I mean, I've got that whole shelf and a whole entire 3 shelf bookshelf over there filled with leadership books and culture books and organizational development books. And the one thing that I don't see in any of those is that it's individual. That these are
Mm.
all supposed magic bullets. They're magic wands that people can, just by reading these books, oh, poof, I'm a good leader, or poof, I've got a good culture, or poof, I've got top employee engagement, right? And that's not the case. The leadership development industry is I think it's $4 or $5 billion right now in 2024, right? And so people, and I'm not disparaging anybody who does that, right? You've got really smart people who do that, but they're trying to sell you their magic wand. They're not
Mm.
trying to help you diagnose and identify what truly works for you and those humans who work for you, right? So my advice is take a human centric approach. Put the people in your facility before the profits, because the profits will ultimately follow once your people feel like they are treated like human beings.
I agree with that. I
Sorry, I
agree with
went on a
that
little rant
wholeheartedly.
there.
No, I think that's an important rant to be on. Because it is something in recruiting, I hear that too. No one wants to work. We have a hard time finding people. Our turnover is high. I mean, so my first question is, I always get such crap for this, but my first question is, well, did you go ask them? I mean, did you go
Right.
ask anyone?
Have you asked
Have
them?
you asked them?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what TCO does in the first part is we do a facility tour, we do a focus group with the employees, and we run an engagement survey right off the bat. And from that qualitative and quantitative data, we're able to say, okay, here's where you currently are in your facility. This is why you have a 62% turnover or 70% turnover. So, but people aren't listening. They're just not asking questions. They're not treating their people like people. They're treating their people like commodities. And that's the part of the reason why we're in the situation we are.
Or they're being reactive to a situation, not proactive, and that is something that we touched in on before we on our pre-interview here. But being reactive in, maybe I've got, a handful of employees that are coming with to me with this problem, and really that's maybe it's either an isolated event,
Yeah.
or it's a lot of he said, she said, and you have to really take it at face value and really to deep dive in and investigate further. It's like, okay, well, let me go ask the whole team
Yep.
and get the whole picture
Yep.
instead of just, being so reliant on information coming from maybe 1 or 2 people, right?
Absolutely.
You gotta get like a whole sample, right, if you're collecting data.
Absolutely. And yeah, we did talk about it before we started recording. And if anybody could have heard that, it was a great start to the episode. We just weren't recording it yet. But so many people, and I think that this happens regardless of size of organization, is people are very reactive to their employees instead of, again, taking the time like we've been talking about to just listen, right? Have focus groups, have an employee engagement survey. Do it before you start having issues in your facility. Do it when you're 18, 19, 20 people strong and you're not 200 or 2,000 people,
Yeah.
right? Because when you start doing these things at an early stage, then they're habit. And anybody who comes on board is just used to these habits. Do it
It's an expectation.
exactly.
And your
Do an
culture will
onboarding.
build itself from that. I mean, they will
Absolutely.
tolerate and they will choose what they tolerate. From if
Exactly.
you can do it like that, that is the absolute best way to I love that you said that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No, no.
I didn't mean to be like, "Preach."
Well, I learned from our friend Emily Wilkins, right? When she and I talked, and then we worked on a one of our clients together, and the way that she involves the employees at her client's site in building these branding messages, which ties so closely into the culture and the lived experiences that employees have. The way that she's able to do that is just it's so heartwarming, right? Because then the employees feel so much more invested in the future of the organization. They may not be stakeholders, financially, stockholders in an organization, but they are stakeholders, not stockholders, is what I meant to say. They may not have physical ownership of any part of that organization, but they do have ownership of the mindset of the organization. And if you can capture that, then you're doing a phenomenal job and they will never leave you.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. They will be loyal. They will be the most loyal employees that you have,
Yeah.
if you practice these things. And I think a big challenge for organizations too is having that transparency and leading the conversations because I think that speaks a lot to folks as well. If you can be transparent and lead a conversation and do it in a way with grace and tactfulness, I think
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot farther than just making kind of some executive level decisions somewhere, somehow, and then just rolling it out and saying, this is what we're doing. Here you go. So I don't know if you have any advice for organizations that want to tactfully lead strategic conversations with their staff on maybe trying to improve their culture. What does your process look like on that? And like, how do we have those effective conversations?
Yeah. Great question. When I work with an organization, we do a 2-day on-site to kick it off, right? And it's our assessment period. It's super cheap. It's $1,600, and you get at the end, you get a complete report on where you are quantitatively and qualitatively. I do one-on-one interviews, focus groups, engagement surveys with the majority, depending, of course, on the size of the organization, but the majority of people I interview in a one-on-one basis and do the surveys and focus groups. I think that actually I don't think I know one way that an organization, a leader within this industry can gauge whether they're on the right track is by simply in their morning meeting, their Friday meeting, whatever they have, say, "Hey guys, these are our values. These are our stated values. Do you feel like we live up to them?" It's a really, really quick and easy way to ask your people that question. And if you've got a good culture, you're going to get people to respond to that. If you have crickets, then that tells you that you need third party help.
Is deafening. And that's important to note too, because a lot of times, like I think in manufacturing too, in HR and in culture, sometimes I've heard the statement, "The squeaky wheel gets the oil," a lot in this industry.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's always the case. I think that sometimes that's indicative of a whole other set of things, but I think silence is deafening. Silence is your answer
Yeah.
in a lot of
Because
cases.
you're always going to have that person who's the loudest voice in the room, right?
Yep,
You're always going to have that person.
yep,
And if you allow yourself to make leadership, organizational decisions based on that one loudest person in the room, then you're going to ignore the other people, the 85, 90, 95% of your organization, depending on how big it is, right? But if you listen for that silence as a leader, if you listen to the people who aren't speaking up and then go to them and say, hey, you didn't say anything in the meeting when we talked about our values this morning. I understand you may not want to have said anything in front of the group. Is there something that you can share with me one on one? You'll get a lot of feedback from that. But it takes being able to have those uncomfortable conversations from leadership's point of view to be able to even go in and have that, right? And,
yeah.
and again, that's why TCO exists, is so leaders don't have to have those conversations themselves. They can get the information, get the data from somebody like me. They can get the data from you, Ann, and the stuff that you do on the talent acquisition with the agency, right? Agencies like yours have the ability to provide such deep data
S
that I
Yes,
but
and
yet
I yes, and
a
I
lot
am
of your
all about
companies.
just word vomiting that too, so I think a lot of to say that to just build on that really quickly and interject,
Yeah.
I think if you're not getting that out of your recruitment agency, that's something you need to think about. But go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't know if a lot of business owners or hiring managers know that that is part of the role of a recruiting agency, right?
Supposed to
I
be.
think that they look at, hey, I just need you to write me a really neat job description to go on LinkedIn or Indeed or Glassdoor or wherever they're posting. And I expect you to bring me, a short list of 12 candidates or 6 candidates or whatever it is. But they don't leverage the experience, the knowledge of the recruiter to actually make better hiring decisions.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
No, I know I'm
I
preaching to the choir here, but I mean, maybe somebody out there didn't know that.
I think I know, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, your listener base, my listener base, mine's not large. I just hope that every time I hit the record button, one person learns one thing. That's all
Yeah,
I'm looking for. I'm not looking to set the world on fire. I'd love to, but I'm
I
not
am.
looking. Okay. I'm just looking to have great conversations and have one person learn one thing. If
I
I can achieve that, then I'm doing my job.
I appreciate that, Jim, I really do. I think you do a great job at it.
Oh, thank you.
I do.
Now I just,
And I
yeah,
yeah.
gotta figure out how to monetize it, and that's the wild part.
Yeah, so I do think that you're doing some amazing things in the community and really, like, contributing your voice in a very meaningful way. Your interview
Well,
that you
thank you.
had at IME West, I believe that you spoke with
Miss
was it
Sammy Birch.
Sammy? Yeah. That was a really good conversation, and I was all about it. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw me.
I did. Well, and that was a really, again, unique experience. Not only was I being asked the questions, but I was sitting at a news desk being interviewed by Sammy, who I talked to virtually, but never had really had an in-depth conversation with in person. But we had clicked, and so when she asked if I would do that, if I was going to be there, I said yes. It was a great conversation. We talked about workforce development. We talked about the podcast. We talked about TCO. We talked about a lot of different things. But I think what a lot of people who follow me don't understand is all three of those things all tie so well together, right? Like I started my company to achieve one thing. I started the podcast to achieve another, but they tie together, right? The podcast tells the stories of people who have good cultures, right? Then the board that I'm on for Skill Up, that helps build this funnel and listen to the voice of these apprentices that are coming into the system, because those are the future voices of these organizations. So it's all tied together. I just didn't do a very good job of listening to Emily and tying my brands together, so now that's what I'm working on.
Well, no, I think you do. I think you do a great job with it. I see that too. I think as a small business owner, it's really difficult to if you're running multiple brands. It's I struggle with that all the time.
It's
So
tough.
no
It's
judgment here.
Well, because when I started the podcast, and I purposely kept the brands separate because I didn't want it to look like I am shilling for TCO Strategies by having this podcast, right? I
Right?
wanted to have these important conversations, but I didn't want
Yep.
it to look like it was coming from here. But then as I'm wrapping up last year, I put on LinkedIn, open to work based on a Chris Lukey recommendation, by the way. Thanks, Chris. And so I put this open to work banner on LinkedIn. People started calling me and asking me about the content creation, which I'm having fun with, but that's far beyond where my skill set truly, like, I may be good at having conversations with people, but I'm not a content creator. I'm a salesperson that helps change culture, right? Like that's what I do. And people didn't know me as that. They just knew me as a guy who did the podcast. So it's just wild how even 1 year of not bringing those brands together has made people very like blinders on view of what the branding is for 𝗵𝗵𝗀. So that's it.
I love that, but you are making content, and, like, I think for us both, interviewing is very much in our skill set, I
Sure.
mean, I'm not super technical either. I mean, you do not want me touching your SCADA, you do not want me programming anything. Ladder logic may as well be French. I mean, sorry, I'm just trying to be funny, but in all
You are.
reality,
You
I'm
are being
not,
funny.
like, good. I hope I don't offend anybody, but, I mean, in all honesty, I'm not very technical, but what I am very good at is interviewing. And what I do well is interviewing as part
Right.
of my skill set. And if I can do that, I'm with you. Like, if I can do that and I can share other people's stories in this industry
Yeah.
that are moving the needle forward and that are making positive impact and change, where we have been stifled as an industry
Yeah.
for a long time,
Yeah.
then I certainly want to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard getting and having the time as a parent, and it's hard getting all of your little boxes and ducks in a row and being like, "Well, let's tie this in over here," and stuff,
Yes.
and I do think that, I love that though that we're, like, very raw and open about it. Like, I love that it looks kind of I mean, it is,
It's
because
messy,
we're
man. I
running
mean,
things.
yeah,
I
it's
mean
messy. And but yeah, that's one thing that I do really appreciate. I mean, I appreciate a lot of things that you do, but I do appreciate your vulnerability because that's who I am too, right? Like I said earlier, I'm an open book. If somebody wants to ask me anything about me, my background, whatever, I'm open to it. But with that comes being very vulnerable when I'm talking about my company and my brands and things that I'm trying to build out. And sometimes it's not for everybody, but there are people that hopefully seeing my failures, my successes too, but also my failures help somebody in their journey along their way. And you do that better than a lot of people. I mean, you're very open and you're just super authentic and vulnerable in that authenticity, right? So I appreciate that about you, Ann.
Oh, thank you, Jim. I'm all about the people, and I am probably the most humanist human you've ever
I
I'm
love it.
superhuman. I
The
mean,
most humanist
like,
human wearing
not
a +1 robotic shirt. And so I love not only the statement, but I love the irony as well.
thank you. Because humans rule and robots work.
Well, yes, and robots are just eh, robots are designed to take those tedious jobs that we don't want to do, right?
That's
And
exactly right.
we just as a species, we got really in a tizzy that they were going to take our jobs instead of make our jobs easier. So I think we just need to adjust our expectations.
I agree, and I that tizzy was very real for what it's I mean, it's, like, very real still.
Fair.
But let me ask you, I know we're kinda running short on time today, but let me ask you, like, one more question to kinda wrap up our conversation about leadership. But, like,
Yeah.
what are the 3 top leadership qualities that successful plant cultures
Yeah.
demonstrate?
I
What are their
love it.
leaders what are those qualities that their leaders they have every time?
Number one is the ability to communicate. That is it, it's paramount. If somebody can't communicate verbally, written, that mission, vision, and values, can't communicate to an employee how their values align with the company's values, can't communicate what the tasks are, then you're sitting in the water. You're dead in the water, right? Number two is empathy. Empathy is being able to put yourself in somebody's shoes, right? So I was when I'm teaching my empathy course, I talk sympathy is feeling for somebody, empathy is feeling with them. So your ability to feel with somebody as they're going through things, envision yourself in their shoes, not necessarily empathy is not necessarily saying I've been there. Empathy is saying in your head I've been there, but to that person that must be really hard. I can't imagine what you're going through right now, right? So having empathy is number two, and number three is do what you say you're going to do. Walk
Mm.
the walk, walk the talk the walk, however you want to put it. Being able to do what you say you're going to do as a leader really sets you apart because there are a lot of people who say one thing and do the other and or put on a wall or on paper that they stand for X, Y, or Z, and then they don't do those things, right? So I think that those are the three that I've seen, the three things that set leaders apart from others: communicate, empathy, and walking the talk.
Yeah, lead by example, right?
Absolutely.
That's right. I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, Jim, do you wanna tell our audience today what the best way to reach you is?
Yeah.
Because you are growing in popularity on all platforms. I see you on the TikTok, I see you on
The
LinkedIn.
TikTok. Yeah.
I I call it the TikTok
I
'cause
love it. I that just it made
again,
me
I'm old,
feel
so I like to
it
date
made me
myself.
feel my age right there when you said the TikTok. But
Yes.
yes, you can find me on the TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, Manufacturing Culture Pod, MFG Culture Pod on TikTok. Best way though to get a hold of me is to find me on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you can go to tcostrategies.com, send me an email or a message through the website. But LinkedIn, Jim Mayer on LinkedIn is the easiest way. I respond to all the messages I get, even though it may take me a couple of days. I'll get
Takes
to
me
it.
forever.
But yeah, that's the best and easiest way. If you're not on LinkedIn, just go to tcostrategies.com. You can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate your time today. And thank you to everyone listening. Looking forward to our next event and
Karaoke,
doing a whole
manufacturing
karaoke
karaoke.
party with
Let's
you.
do it. This is
Yes.
going to be a blast. I can't wait. America's Got Talent has nothing on Manufacturing's Got Talent.
I love this already. All
Let's
right,
do it.
Jim.
All right. Thank you so much, Ann. I appreciate you having me on. I loved our conversation. You're great at what you do. Look forward to working with you in the future.
All right. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye.